Tomorrow is a travel day, and then joint practices with Carolina in their first preseason game. Kevin Stefanski was asked, is there more value in the joint practices in the preseason game and the evaluation process for the young players?
I feel like there's value in everything, in what we're seeing from the guys. We value their how they do in the meeting room. We value how they are in the walkthrough, like I mentioned earlier. We value all these practice reps. Of course, when you're going up against another team and it's a setting where maybe you don't know exactly what the defense is going to do or the offense is going to do, I think there's certainly value created in that. And then in the preseason games, like I mentioned before, they're keeping score, so the competitive part of our sport kicks in, and you want to obviously do well in those venues as well.
So, Tom, I use that to set this up. What if you're watching and hearing from these joint practices, and probably the joint practices more so even than the preseason games, what are some things that are really good to hear, and what are some things that when you hear, you're like, yeah, that's not great?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, physicality. The last 2 years, and I remember 2 years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles got off the bus, and I was like, uh-oh. And, they went out and kicked the Browns' butts for a couple of days. I mean, the Browns by the end were able to kind of, even it up a little bit, but man, they got manhandled up front, and it was kind of eye-opening to us. And then last year, the Vikings came in here, and it was one of those moments where, on top of what I saw in earlier in training camp with Deshaun Watson, I was like, oh boy, this could be trouble because it felt like Minnesota's defense had kind of gotten their way, and then with the way the Vikings moved the ball and just seeing Justin Jefferson in person and what have you. So I think first and foremost, Dave, it's just being able to match up. And I think obviously Carolina is not a team that's necessarily contending for a Super Bowl this year, so you would hope the Browns would get off the bus down there in Charlotte and be hungry and show that they belong on the field with them, because they do. So, to me, that would be one of the first signs, is that, the Browns were able to match up physically, that, we would expect Myles Garrett to dominate as always, right? I'll be very interested to see and hear how the offensive line holds up. There's still some questions to me on that offensive line. Not that I don't believe in Joel Bitonio or Wyatt Teller or DeJuan Jones or Ethan Posich and Jack Conklin. I think they're all really solid players, but that group has got to be, first of all, healthy and cohesive all year, because it's not going to matter who's back at quarterback if that group's not playing well together.